Riprendiamo con un ospite importante, Nadia Ukid, Global Design Manager di Sappi. Il tema proposto è progettare superfici che parlano ai sensi. Esperta nel settore dello sviluppo commerciale, una lunga formazione multiculturale, un'esperienza internazionale nel design, ha lavorato per marchi leader nel settore della moda, Hugo Boss, insomma tanti, e decorazione anche per Chat Decor in particolare. Dal 2014 Nadia ricopre il ruolo di responsabile globale appunto del design per la divisione carta, appunto per fusione e distacco di Sappi. Nadia, microfono, telecomandino per girare le slide, a te il palco.
Grazie.
Buona presentazione.
Grazie. Buongiorno a tutti. Hello, good afternoon. Do you hear me well? Is it okay? Yes. All right, so we'll start today my presentation just after lunch. It's always a critical time after lunch because people tend to have the siesta, tend to go in siesta mode, or they are still busy in the lunch. But however, it's filmed there, so probably if someone wants to see the presentation later on, it will be available. I just came in from the US. I wanted absolutely to meet the Surface in Motion family because it has developed to a really nice, familiar crowd of people that we meet in conferences and see each other. And it's a great pleasure for me to be here, even if the crowd is not big, but it's always the most important guys are sitting there. So thank you for being here and taking the time. I was thinking a lot about what to present. It's not an easy time today to come and to say, well, the trend is this, the trend is that, that's where the market is going. It's not, because the market is as complex as our own life. We are dealing with crisis, we are dealing with wars, we are dealing with inflation, and somehow there is we are in a bumpy, uncomfortable situation, and we don't know really, or it's very hard to predict the future. And it's even harder for trend forecasters to really make an accurate prediction. So talking about trends, I don't want to. I don't feel it is appropriate, and even if you do something, it will probably not last very long. So let's try to move the slides here. Is it 18? Oh. Sorry. Down?
Yes.
Okay. That was, yeah. So I'm pressing down.
Un momento, probabilmente stanno ricaricando la presentazione. Ecco.
Sì. Ok, grazie. Thank you. So as I said, no trend presentation today. So what is the topic that I would like to highlight today? In times of crisis, we want to show our excellence because we want to be different. We want to emerge from the market so that people see us and notice us. So when the times are a little bit shaky and it's unsure, that is a time where we go back to what is our DNA, and we try to reflect and think about the product that we really, really excel in. So this presentation is about making excellent surfaces. Not for Sappi, it's just for everyone that is here, because it's so important today in the market just to emerge and to differentiate from the others. And that is why I have chosen the topic surfaces that speak to the senses. I don't know if many of you have seen Sappi. There might be some people in the audience that don't know Sappi. So we are a very global company present in different markets. So just a few words on that. It's a global company. And SAPI, by the way, is South African Pulp and Paper Industry. So people are sometimes stunned that our headquarters are in South Africa, which is nice. So we are a global company, and the traditional segments that we are in here is the graphic paper, the traditional one, and packaging paper, and in the specialities we emerge as a casting and release paper. But we do also some other stuff that is very exciting, like dissolving pulp. And dissolving pulp that goes into textiles, like Dupont, viscose, etc. So that's what we do. It's a very interesting product. Then we have some biomaterials that are used in cosmetics. Nice too. And of course, in South Africa, we own also some forests. So we harvest our own wood, and we work really as a vertical producer from the forest to the ready-made product. And there is an aspect that is interesting in that. It's about also circularity. I'll talk about that. But we are roughly 12,000 people around the world. And the casting and release paper is only in the US. So it's only in these area here. Whereas in the others, we have also packaging and graphic paper. These are the few words I wanted to say about us. And I would like to highlight the sustainability matter, because we were always sustainable. You know, when you produce pulp, you create heat. And this heat is heat and moisture. And this heat and moisture is used to then produce the paper. So we are really from the beginning already a company that has 78% of its energy produced in-house. So these are the few words that I wanted to tell you, and we of course are very proud of our Ultracast process, which is the release paper that we produce for the laminate industry. It works like a press plate or a mold to press texture or to mold them, and we have a high definition product and replication of textures. So this was a little bit the snapshot on the company. Let's go to the topic, how to design surfaces that are speaking to the senses. There are many components to this topic, and there is a famous neuroscientist, so in neurology, that has studied this matter for many, many years in the US, and he's a well-established person in the industry. So it's Anyan Chatterjee. And after a long study, he came to the conclusion that there are 3 factors that influence how our perception of a room is. So first of all, it's the coherence. What it means coherence, how logic is a room. I will give you the example of an airport. In many airports look the same, and they have a certain order that even if you are from abroad and you go, I don't know, to New Delhi, to Istanbul, or to Washington, you more or less are able to find yourself because there is a logic behind. This applies also to interiors, if you're in a house, in a kitchen, if you're in a workspace, if you are in a hotel, etc. So it's how logic is the space for me. The second one, the fascination, how fascinating is this room for me? Is it inviting me to open, to touch, to sit? Oh, look at that nice chair. I would like to try it out and to sit on it and so on, or not. And then the last one is a word that is used in the US, is hominess, but it's a synonym of how cozy a room can be, how emotional, comfortable a room can create an atmosphere. So just again, the coherence is how organized and legible does the space appear. And then how fascinating the space is, and is it informationally rich? And then the third one is how comfortable is this room. For the second one, informally rich, I will give you also an example of a hotel room. If you go in a hotel and you are in Venice, you expect in the room the decoration maybe to have something to do with Murano glass. Even if there is a little piece or there is a design from it, you don't expect to see the Eiffel Tower of Paris in a hotel in Venice. So just the fascination, this is a bit of coherence and a bit of fascination. All right, moving forward. The important thing is if you want to excel and to be excellent in making designs for interiors, you have to have all the three aspects taken care. So you're probably being in that spot here, in that sweet spot, then you are excellent in your concept. I wanted to show you a room that is not conform to this. And instead of, I looked into the internet looking for pictures that really give me a sense of a room that is like not okay. So I asked ChatGPT, could you create a room that is not using the triad of Anyan Chatterjee? And this is the room, a workspace. I said a workspace. And this is the workspace that he gave. And when I saw the picture, I looked, wow, this looks so familiar to me. I have been 1,000 times in these spaces. And this is where we spend 8 to 10 hours of our daily life in such a space. Yes, you do some work, you are a motivated employee, but somehow the interior helps also to focus, to have a good atmosphere, and to be creative. So we asked him the same. Could you please create a workspace that is conform to this triad of Anyan Chatterjee? And the same thing came out. And I thought, wow, this looks nice, inviting. There are some rooms. Of course, it's a different cost level. I am aware about that. But it's well invested, probably well invested money in your in your employees and in the representation of a company. So I would like to explain how this is done. So these are the three elements. The slide is a little bit cumbersome. There is a lot of information here, but ChatGPT even explained to you what are the elements that are coherent, that are creating coziness, or that are fascinating. So the organization is there. You have gathering together spaces. You have privacy. You have a workspace that still gives you a low level of noise. The materials are wood and stone. You have some plants, you have some carpets that create a warm atmosphere. And the light is very important as well. So just think about that. And since a lot of you might be working also in the home office, this is how a nice, inspiring home office could also be looking like, just because this helps you to focus, this helps you to be creative, this helps you to love to be in that space and to spend so much time in that space. Maybe in contrast to the first one that was looking different. So, of course, we saw that in this interiors, surfaces have a big impact. We noticed the materials that are used, and especially touch has a big impact. Touch is one of the fundamental human senses. Yeah, the kids, the small ones, touch things, they put them then in their mouth, but to really taste them. So touching and tasting is something that we start very early in our life. And the reason why I wanted to highlight touch is not because Sappi is working in textures. It's because our world is more and more digital. And sometimes designers are designing for the camera, for Instagram, and less for the touch. This is a very important aspect. So you see a lot of designs that are created that are very sleek, where the image is wow, a lot of colors, an explosion of things. But when you come and touch it, like, okay, I would have loved if there was more to touch, if the excitement that the image is conveying to me could also be in my fingertips. So I would like to, if you are thinking about doing something excellent, think also about the touch. The touch should always incorporate a texture that makes people curious to put their fingers on the surface, and that creates the value. Yeah, because when people touch things, it feels like plastic, or wow, that feels exciting. Look at how soft or how nice or how rich a surface feels. So we have a lot of attention to that, of course, because we are texture makers, but I challenge everyone in this market, or would like to recommend from my side in this market, that surfaces and textures are important, and design is not only color. Just to give you some examples, we have launched recently Vita. We called it Life because it has a flow of life and it's a reflective texture. This is a texture that can be combined with metal and with the wood. If you want, you can put it on solid colors and on transparent colors. It will always look different. Then Canaletto is there even on our desk. It's a very nice universal wood, very quiet, with some contrasts in there. And the last one, the city of the three. So we have a stone, a wood, and a metal. And the city is the stone topic. It's more of a concrete that you can put also on travertine if you want, because it's enhancing the surfaces of travertine, of marble, of concrete, so something very nice. And we would like to highlight opal. It's a texture that is now shown on a leather design, but we can see it later on how it could be looking like on interior surface. So just going back to that slide, I would like to wrap up my presentation and, oh, it doesn't want to. So I would like to wrap up my presentation by giving you examples of how to design or how to take care of excellent interiors. And if you are aiming for a home that is cozy, or that is a home or an interior that is more cozy, then I would like to do a proposal for it. And then if you are aiming for a playful space, like a bar or a lobby or something, then there is a second proposal. And the third one would be then a very community-based design. So in every picture, I would show the materials, the shape, the colors, and the lighting, because all these together are applied to the triad. So again, the surfaces of textures, the materials, the shape that you see here, if it's rounded and nice, with the boucle. So this sofa here is just inviting you to see it. and probably if you touch it, it would be very interesting to touch. And plants and decorative elements in the room make it always looking a bit more inviting. So a cozy atmosphere would probably be using, in fact, this sofa here, but also rounded shapes in general, just because angles are a little bit more repellent, so we feel better or we feel comfortable in rounded shapes. By the way, these are the tables where I told you that opal, our design that I showed you in leather, could be giving the same effect that you see here on this table. So it's quite glossy, but with a nice shimmer. So this is how our design opal would be looking like. Coziness is also created with the colors, with the materials. So we see marble here, boucle and velvet, a plant. Nature is always there. And very soft textiles. Of course, what doesn't have to be missed is the real wood, real stone. It's always attractive to have maybe not the entire interior made with wood, but a nice eye catcher done with real wood or real stone just makes it look fantastic. So this is just an example. The colors are also a little bit down to earth tones, helping to create that atmosphere. Then let's go to a playful space. So here we want to be exuberant, we want to be happy and to show that we are happy. So for example, the light is very nice. These are 3D printed lamps. They are 3D printed, transparent, a very nice shape, still giving a nice atmosphere in the room, but also being an eye catcher when they are hang on. Then a lot of color, a lot of bright colors, a lot of fun, and sometimes reflective materials that help to make it interesting visually and also have a tactile dimension on it. So this is play. I am happy to be in this room. Then the last room is a community lab. So here we want to gather, we want spaces where we come together, where everyone can show its own personality and meet the community, discuss. So a lot of tables, a lot of chairs that are easy to move and that are inviting, and a lot of materials that are easy to clean, because when you have a lot of people gathering, they need to be kind of easy to clean. So this is including the colors, how a community space could be looking like. It could be a canteen, it could be a bar, a lobby, whatever, a room where the community gathers. And we have more and more interiors that are designed, people sharing spaces that be looking like this. Yeah, so as I told you, in a world where we don't know where the future is, my message to this world is focus on your excellence. Focus on what you can do better. Focus on what makes you special. And there are some rules, of course, to follow. There are some science behind the neuroscience that Anyan Chatterjee has exposed to us or has shared with us. And by following these principles, it's a nice path to follow to have an excellent product. Voilà. This is what I had to you today. I didn't want to be too long, so thank you for your patience and for your time.
Thank you. Grazie Nadia. Approfitto del fatto che parli molto bene l'italiano per farti una domanda in italiano, poi magari puoi continuare a parlare in inglese.
Certo.
Nella tua professione,
Sì.
nel mondo dei designer, quante di queste figure professionali tengono conto effettivamente degli aspetti della neuroscienza, gli aspetti che riguardano un po' la psicologia? Perché molto spesso si parla soltanto di estetica, di buon gusto, ma effettivamente questo aspetto più legato al pensiero e alla reazione, no, emotiva di una persona viene, non dico trascurato, ma reso un po' marginale.
Sì, allora direi che in generale la gente è attenta a questo aspetto. Direi che gli architetti specialmente, quelli che devono per esempio fare i space che sono hospitality, sono gli alberghi eccetera, e spa, hanno già questo in mente, vogliono esprimere un space con questo metodo. La nostra industria purtroppo non è in grado di vendere l'idea in questo modo. Allora, noi proponiamo samples, campioni ai clienti, ma non direi, è la mia
Certo.
impressione, non abbiamo ancora sufficientemente insistito sul fatto che questo prodotto potrebbe aiutarti se sei veramente nella ricerca di fare qualcosa di gioioso, playful. Questi sono i miei elementi. Se vuoi fare un space che è più confortevole, più cozy, proponiamo questo. Su questo non sono sicura, non so se siete tutti d'accordo, ma non siamo ancora abbastanza bravi a venderlo.
A vendere questo
Sì,
concetto.
lo dico velocemente in inglese
Certo.
per quelli. I think that the question that was raised is are these principles of design followed in the market? I think that architects are quite good in following that because they create the spaces, and a lot of them that are good, of course, have that in mind. Our industry creates the materials for the architect, but when we sell the materials, we are not, I think, good enough yet or not performing well to explain to the architect where to put this material. He finds the material sometimes just by coincidence, which we could help. If we know about that, if we dig deeper in that topic, we could do a better job in selling them to the architects. So.
Grazie Nadia per essere tornata dagli Stati Uniti, per aver voluto essere qui con noi oggi e per il tuo italiano, come dissi 2 anni fa, perché è perfetto.
Grazie mille, è stato un grande piacere di essere con voi.
Grazie.
Very
Nadia.
nice to have you. Thank you.
Grazie.